please raise your hand first. Go ahead, Corey.
Don, can you just talk a little about the trade? And obviously you give up a former first-round pick, but add a little muscle. Was that generally what the thinking was, to kind of fortify the back end and get a righty?
Yeah, we've been talking about getting a right-hand shot defenseman. I've been pretty open about it. And, we just feel to complement what we have already, that a stay-at-home big guy can play with one of our offensive guys, made a lot of sense for us. It's, when you make trades, first of all, they're not easy to make, but you look at fits, what works for your hockey club. And we just think this is a better fit for us. And that's why the decision was made to make the trade.
Andrew?
Don, did the expansion draft play into this decision at all? Was Hayden a player that you guys felt like you were maybe at some risk of Seattle taking?
Yes, you put all these things in your thinking when you're making deals right now that we know we're potential would have issues with our defense via for the expansion draft. And, so instead of letting a player just walk away potentially for nothing, we'll still lose a good player one way or another. We just felt that that was part of it. It wasn't the driver of the decision, but it was definitely a part of it. Right now, we really like our hockey team. That's why we didn't make a lot of changes, but we really felt that we needed this stay-at-home right-hand shot defenseman, and this deal came about.
Sarah?
Had this been in the works? Like, when did this deal come about? It looked like right at the deadline it happened.
Yeah, we talked throughout the day. We talked to lots of teams about probably had 10 or 12 deals going on at the same time. And, I think the decision was made sometime before 2:00 that we were going to go in this direction. So, today was one day. We've been talking about different deals regarding this player for a few days now. And so there was no surprise for teams when and I kept telling we're going to get close. We're getting closer on making a decision, so we had multiple teams that were talking to us. But again, we thought this fit was the best for our hockey club as we sit here today.
Aaron?
Hey, Don, I wanted to ask you something a little bit more from a league-wide perspective. How do you think the salary cap crunch maybe affected movement today? Was it easier to be a buyer than a seller at the deadline, as far as from the league standpoint, you think?
Well, the salary cap place, definitely, as you see some of the deals that were made around the league, it was, had to pass through another team to get the cap hit down. So, it's not like the old days where you want a player, you just go make the deal. Lots more maneuvering, a lot more involved in it. But I do think, the cap does preclude some teams from making wholesale changes. And, to me, I think the cap's there for a purpose, and it serves its purpose on a day like today.
Mike Solarte?
Hey, Don, great to see you again. Bringing in a guy like Hakanpää, who has some history with Aho, was obviously you make the deal, you make the call, but did you talk to Sebastian about that and get some background on him and how he might fit in the room?
Yeah, we talked to Aho about this player a few years ago, actually, when he was a free agent and coming over here. And Sebastian had nothing but good things to say. He was a teammate of Sebastian's, had nothing but good things to say about the character, what type of guy he was and all that. So, yeah, no, anytime we make deals, we always make sure we do as much background checks as we can. You don't always have the luxury of doing it, but we've known this player for several years now, and felt very comfortable that he would come in and fit well with our team and our culture that we have here.
Chip?
Don, the hope is that Teuvo Teravainen will be able to rejoin the team at some point. In talking to your medical people, are you confident that he'll be able to get back this year? And also, I know he had COVID issues in addition to the concussion. Were there lingering COVID issues that factored into the concussion symptoms?
Not that I'm aware of, Chip. I know it's been a little bit of a battle. I know this last week it's been much better for him, and he's been skating now. and getting closer. We don't have a date yet, but the COVID, I just couldn't give you a real answer if that had any effect on it. Obviously we know the player got hit and all that. So, the good thing is every day he seems to be showing improvements, and hopefully we'll get him back in the lineup soon.
Corey?
Don, if you would take us behind the curtain a little bit. Last year, there was some talks with Anaheim, and there were some pretty pointed comments from Bob Murray about talks getting leaked out. How do you repair that relationship and come back a year later and make a deal?
Well, Bob and I have a long history of making deals and knowing each other for a long time. So, certain things, happen that probably shouldn't have happened, but they were no issue. I've talked to Bob a lot this year about different things. So, the one thing is when we made this trade, it was clear that I told our people to make sure everybody keeps very quiet until this deal comes down, because you don't ever want to get any kind of situation where somebody's afraid to do a deal with you. But Bob, I have a lot of respect for Bob. And, when you're trading players, I think you got to be careful, because whenever I make a trade, I want the player to hear it from me first, not hear it from the media. And today, when I called Fleurs, it wasn't out there at all. They called their player. So that's the way you want a trade to go down. That's when the player, first time he hears it, is from the general manager.
Andrew?
Don, looking forward a little bit, I know you guys have tabled contract discussions with Dougie Hamilton until after the season. What about with Andre? Is it the same situation with him? And are you looking even at potentially do you not have any idea of, if you might want to get one done before the other to see where you stand or anything like that?
No, there's no priority of which one gets done. But we did the same thing with Andre some time back. We just said, let's, different circumstances. One's a UFA, one's an RFA. So we said to Andre's camp, let's just let him play hockey, let him finish out the year here. And when the season's over, we'll sit down and figure out what the next contract's going to look like. So there's no priority of one has to get done over the other one. We're still hopeful that we get them both done in a short time and move forward.
Mike Solarte?
Don, you mentioned you had several conversations with several different teams. Obviously, you're not going to go into specifics as to players being involved, but were those teams coming to you looking to make the deals? And were you basically in a position of strength trying to field offers and coming down and deciding what was going to be the best move for you guys?
Yeah, the way these things work, I start getting feelers for who's looking for what. I initiate a lot of calls. Some guys hear and call me. And the issue was most teams that we were talking to were offering future draft picks and younger players. And, because any of the teams that are right in the mix now have a hard time moving players off their roster. So, we listened to that, but we also knew that we didn't want to go into the stretch run here in the playoffs minus a defenseman with not replacing. So that's why we had always focused on, and I was pretty vocal about it before about saying we want a right shot defenseman. So that's what I kept telling teams. That was our desire. I said, if we don't get that, we'll revisit it at a later date. But no, we pretty much talked to quite a few teams about Hayden.
Chip?
Don, a lot's been said about your three goalies. Was there any consideration of trading one of the goalies here at the deadline? And also, as general manager, how do you feel about going ahead now with three goalies, which a lot of teams would say might be one too many?
Well, I think we're in a different year this year because of all the games that are going to be played, and we feel really good about our three goalies. And yeah, if somebody came along and said they give you X and you thought it was worth it, you at least listen to it. But I know when Rod and I talked about it, we're all comfortable having three goalies. Certainly there's going to be some guys that aren't going to play as much as others. But with the injuries, Peter just came back, and what we've gone through the last couple of years, we just felt that we really needed these 3 goalies. We had the roster space, we had the cap space. So we weren't put in a position where we felt we had to make a trade.
Smitty?
Don, I know this year is different in a lot of ways with protocol. So when do you expect to get Hakanpää into the lineup?
I think Foley be ready to go Thursday night. We're bringing him in tonight. Should be here late tonight, so he won't miss any days of testing. And I think once he gets here, tomorrow's a day off. Practice on Wednesday and be ready to go on Thursday.
Corey?
I know his contract is up after this year, but do you view this as potentially more than just a deadline rental?
Yeah, no doubt about it. You know, there's no reason to talk about it right now. Let him come in and get settled. You know, I think we have a good thing going here. I think he'll find that out. Obviously, he's talked to Sebastian about before and a couple of other Finnish players. So, you know, I think it could potentially be a good fit. That would be something that we'd look at longer term.
All right. Thanks, Don. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.